The breaking point. The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Assembly Hall stretched high above the representatives of 47 species. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in the human observation section, her hands folded calmly in her lap as chaos erupted around her. For 8 years, she had attended these meetings. For 8 years, she had watched and listened. For 8 years, she had said nothing. Today would be different. The emergency session had been called after the most recent atrocity committed by the Krathan Dominion. General Thrakmor, a towering reptilian being with scales that gleamed like polished steel, stood at the center of the assembly floor. His 4 arms gestured dramatically as he defended his species' actions. The refugee convoy was traveling through contested space, Thrakmor declared, his voice booming through the chamber's translation systems. They refused to submit to proper inspection. We acted within our rights as a sovereign military force. Gasps and angry chittering filled the air. The refugee convoy he spoke of had contained over 12,000 beings from 6 different species, families fleeing the expanding war zones. The Krathan had opened fire without warning, destroying half the ships before the survivors could surrender. Counselor Zilthera of the Silari Collective rose from her curved seating pod. The ethereal being's translucent skin pulsed with angry purple light. "Your rights?" she asked, her telepathic voice reaching every mind in the chamber simultaneously. "What right gives you permission to murder children? To destroy hospital ships clearly marked with medical symbols?" "The right of strength," Thrakmor replied without hesitation. "The galaxy is changing. The old ways of endless debate and compromise have failed. Only the strong will survive what comes next." From the upper tiers, High Admiral Kexvar of the Nexari Empire nodded approvingly. The Nexari looked like living shadows wrapped in environmental suits, and their empire had been expanding aggressively for the past 5 years. "General Thrakmor speaks truth," Kexvar's synthesized voice announced. "The Galactic Trade Federation has become weak. While you debate, civilizations fall. While you negotiate, entire worlds burn." Elena watched the assembly descend into familiar patterns. The same arguments, the same posturing, the same inability to take meaningful action. She had documented it all, sending detailed reports back to Earth through quantum channels that no other species could detect or intercept. The Alterian delegate, a small mammalian being with large eyes, stood trembling. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the growing noise. "My people have nowhere else to go. The Krathan fleets are 3 days from our home system. We have no weapons, no warships. We are farmers and artists. We only want to live in peace. Then submit to Krathan protection." Thrakmor said dismissively, "Serve the Dominion faithfully, and you will be allowed to continue your simple existence." "As slaves," Zilthera interjected, her purple glow intensifying. "The Silari Collective will not stand by while peaceful species are conquered and enslaved. The Collective is welcome to try stopping us," High Admiral Kexvar said, leaning forward in his shadowy form. "The Nexari Empire grows stronger each day. Soon we will control the core systems, and then this debate becomes meaningless." Elena had heard enough. She had listened to 8 years of threats, watched dozens of species disappear from galactic affairs, seen refugee populations grow into the billions. She had kept humanity's silence while civilizations fell and innocents died. She stood up. The movement was so unexpected that conversations faltered throughout the chamber. The human representative had never moved during a session before. She was like a statue, present but irrelevant, ignored by everyone. "I request permission to address the assembly," Elena said clearly. The silence that followed was complete. Even the ambient humming of the station's systems seemed to pause. Assembly moderator Veltar, an ancient being from a species so old they had transcended physical form, materialized as a shimmering hologram. "The representative from Earth wishes to speak." Veltar's voice carried surprise. In 8 years of observation, humanity has never requested the floor. 8 years, Elena repeated, walking down the steps toward the assembly floor. 8 years of watching this body fail to protect the innocent. 8 years of seeing the strong prey upon the weak while others debate. 8 years of silence. She reached the center of the chamber and looked up at the assembled representatives. Her voice carried clearly through the translation systems, reaching every being present. "The Terran Federation has been watching," she announced. "We have been learning. We have been preparing. Today, humanity breaks its silence." General Thrackmore laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stone. "The humans wish to play at galactic politics. Your species discovered faster than light travel barely 50 years ago. You control one system. You have no military to speak of. What could you possibly contribute to this discussion?" Elena smiled slightly. It was not a warm expression. "General, you assume we have spent these 8 years doing nothing. You assume our single system means we are weak. You assume we have no military because we have shown you no military." She touched a device on her wrist. Throughout the chamber, holographic displays activated, showing real-time images from space around the station. The assembled representatives gasped as they saw what surrounded them. 12 ships hung in perfect formation around the Galactic Assembly Station. They were unlike anything in any species database, sleek, angular vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. They had been completely invisible until that moment. The TS's determination, resilience, unity, and 9 other vessels of Earth's diplomatic protection fleet. Elena announced calmly. "They have been here since the session began, monitoring all communications and ready to defend this station if needed." Commander Marcus Chen's face appeared on the main display. The middle-aged human wore a uniform none of the alien species recognized, with rank insignia that spoke of significant military authority. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said formally, "all ships report ready status. Our stealth systems have been monitoring the system for hostile activity. We have identified 14 cloaked vessels from various factions, all armed and positioned for potential conflict." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and accusations. How had human ships penetrated the most secure system in the galaxy? How long had they been watching? What other capabilities did Earth possess? Elena raised her hand, and the noise gradually subsided. "For 8 years, the Terran Federation has observed galactic affairs. We have watched species after species disappear. We have seen refugees flee burning worlds. We have documented atrocities that would make any civilized being weep." She gestured to the holographic displays, which now showed images from across the galaxy. Refugee camps overcrowded with desperate beings. Destroyed worlds where cities once stood. Ships full of families murdered for traveling through the wrong space. We have remained silent because we hoped you would find solutions. We believed that wisdom and diplomacy would prevail. We trusted that the assembled intelligence of 47 species could create peace and justice. The images changed again, showing detailed intelligence reports, military deployments, and strategic analyses that revealed an intimate knowledge of every major power's capabilities and intentions. "We were wrong," Elena continued. "The Krathan Dominion speaks of strength but practices cruelty. The Nexari Empire claims order but spreads tyranny. Even the Silari Collective, with all their wisdom, cannot stop the violence spreading through our galaxy." General Thrackmore stood to his full height, towering over the human ambassador. "You dare judge the Krathan? Your species is nothing. A single system, a few billion beings at most. We could erase humanity from existence without effort." "Could you?" Elena asked quietly. "General, what do you know about human population?" The displays changed once more, showing not Earth's single star system, but dozens of systems throughout the galaxy. In each one, hidden facilities and populations that had gone completely undetected. "Earth is our homeworld," Elena explained as gasps echoed through the chamber. "But humanity has been expanding for decades. We have established colonies, research stations, and industrial facilities in 37 systems. Our total population exceeds 800 billion. The number hit the assembly like a shock wave. Most species topped out at a few 100 billion across their entire empires. Humanity, supposedly confined to one system, had grown beyond the size of most major powers. How? Counselor Zilthera asked, her purple glow flickering with confusion. Our intelligence networks show no human expansion. No colony ships, no military movements, no territorial claims. Because we learned from watching you, Elena replied. We saw how expansion led to conflict, how territorial claims led to war, how military displays led to arms races, so we chose a different path. Commander Chen's image reappeared on the displays. What the ambassador means, he explained, is that humanity developed advanced stealth and concealment technology. Our colonies exist in systems you consider empty or worthless. Our ships travel routes you don't monitor. Our facilities are hidden in asteroids, gas giant moons, and deep space installations. Impossible, High Admiral Kexvar stated. No species can hide such expansion from our sensor networks. The same sensor networks that didn't detect our ships until we chose to reveal them. Elena asked, Admiral, your technology is impressive, but it's based on assumptions about how civilizations behave. You look for the patterns you expect: territorial conquest, resource extraction, military buildup. You never looked for what we actually built. The displays showed images of human facilities that defied galactic norms. Cities built inside asteroids, completely self-contained and invisible from outside. Ships that looked like space debris until they activated. Research stations that masqueraded as natural phenomena. What we built, Elena continued, was a civilization dedicated to learning, growing, and preparing. While other species fought over territory, we found empty space and made it livable. While others competed for resources, we developed closed-loop systems that waste nothing. While others built weapons to destroy, we built tools to create and protect. She walked closer to General Thrackmore, looking up at the massive reptilian warrior without fear. You want to know what strength really looks like, General. Strength is building a civilization that doesn't need to conquer others to thrive. Strength is having the power to destroy your enemies and choosing instead to protect the innocent. Pretty words, Thrackmore growled. But words are not weapons. Philosophy does not win wars. Elena smiled again, and this time there was something predatory in the expression. Commander Chen, please show the General what happened to Krathen Battle Group 7. The displays changed to show a Krathen fleet that had been attacking refugee ships in the Kepler system. As they watched, the Krathen vessels simply stopped moving. Their weapons powered down, their engines went silent, and their communication systems activated. Krathen vessels, came a calm human voice over the recording. This is Captain Sarah Rodriguez of the Terran Federation. Your aggressive actions against civilian refugees end now. Your ships have been disabled by non-lethal electromagnetic pulse weapons. Your crews are unharmed, but your vessels are now under our control. The recording continued, showing human ships decloaking around the stunned Krathen fleet. The refugees were quickly evacuated to safety while Krathen soldiers found themselves locked in their own ships, unable to access weapons or communications. Battle Group 7 consisted of 43 vessels, Elena noted. It was neutralized in under 10 minutes without a single casualty on either side. The Krathen crews were provided with food, water, and medical attention, while arrangements were made for their return home. The chamber was completely silent now. Representatives stared at the displays in shock, trying to understand what they were seeing. This happened 6 hours ago, Elena continued. By now, similar operations have concluded in 12 other systems. Krathen forces attacking civilians have been disabled and contained. Nexari raiding fleets have found their weapons mysteriously non-functional. Ships carrying refugees are now under the protection of the Terran Federation. General Thrackmore's scales had lost their shine, becoming dull with shock and anger. You attack the Krathen Dominion and expect no response. This is an act of war. No, Elena said firmly. This is an act of protection. Your forces were murdering innocents. We stopped them with minimal force and no casualties. Your soldiers will be returned home safely with full medical care. That is not how wars begin, General. That is how they end. She turned to address the entire assembly. The Terran Federation makes this offer to every species represented here. End the aggression. Stop the expansion into others' territory. Cease the attacks on civilian populations. Choose cooperation over conquest. And if we refuse? High Admiral Kexvar asked. Alina's expression became very serious. Then you will discover that humanity's 8 years of silence were not spent idly. We have prepared for this moment. We have the capability to enforce peace if it cannot be negotiated. You threaten the galaxy with human tyranny. Counselor Zilthera asked, though her purple glow showed more curiosity than anger. We offer the galaxy human protection, Alina corrected. We will not conquer worlds or demand tribute. We will not impose our government or our culture on anyone, but we will no longer stand by while the strong prey upon the weak. She looked around the chamber one final time. You have 72 hours to consider this offer. Withdraw your forces from neutral territory. And attacks on civilian populations. Begin genuine negotiations for lasting peace. Do this, and humanity will gladly return to our observer status. And if we do not, General Thrackmore demanded. Alina's smile returned, cold and certain. Then you will learn why we spent 8 years preparing instead of talking. As she walked back to her seat, the displays showed images from across the galaxy. Human ships appearing near refugee populations, providing food and medical aid. Disabled military vessels being towed to safety. Rescue operations proceeding smoothly in dozens of systems. The age of human silence was over. The age of human action had begun. The demonstration. 72 hours had passed since Ambassador Alina Vasquez delivered humanity's ultimatum to the Galactic Assembly. Across the galaxy, the response had been swift and decisive. Every major power had rejected the human demands with contempt. In the war rooms of the Krathan Dominion, General Thrackmore addressed his high command. The massive reptilian beings gathered around holographic displays, showing the locations of human activities across their territory. The mammals have made a grave error, Thrackmore declared, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. They believe their parlor tricks with stealth technology make them our equals. They will learn the price of interfering with Krathan expansion. Supreme War Leader Graktul, an even larger Krathan with scars covering his armored hide, leaned forward. Our intelligence reports suggest the humans have fewer than 200 ships total. Our fleet comprises over 15,000 vessels. This will be the shortest war in galactic history. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. In the crystalline command centers of the Nexari Empire, High Admiral Kexvar coordinated with his shadow admirals to plan humanity's swift destruction. The Silari Collective, while less aggressive, had also refused the human ultimatum, viewing it as unacceptable interference in galactic affairs. On Earth, in the hidden command center buried beneath the Canadian Rockies, Commander Marcus Chen watched the responses pour in. The facility buzzed with activity as thousands of technicians coordinated operations across 37 star systems. Admiral Santos wants to know if we proceed to Phase 2, reported Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Park, Chen's operations officer. Chen studied the massive holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated hostile fleet movements as all 3 major powers began mobilizing for war against humanity. Yellow markers showed neutral species caught in the middle, their refugee populations growing by the hour. Green markers indicated human positions, far more numerous than any alien intelligence service had suspected. Any species accept our offer? Chen asked. 17 minor powers have requested protection, Park replied. The Alterian Republic formally asked to join the Terran Federation this morning. The Benthek Trade Guild wants to negotiate a mutual defense pact. Chen nodded. He had expected this. The smaller species understood that their survival depended on finding powerful protectors. What mattered now was whether humanity could back up its promises. "Contact Ambassador Vasquez," he ordered. "Tell her it's time for the demonstration." Back at the Galactic Assembly Station, Alina stood before the emergency session that had been called to address the human crisis. The chamber was more crowded than ever, with representatives from every known species wanting to witness what came next. General Thrackmore dominated the center floor, his scales gleaming with aggressive confidence. "The Krathan Dominion has reviewed the human demands," he announced. "We reject them utterly. Any species that believes they can dictate terms to their betters will be crushed without mercy." High Admiral Kexfar's shadowy form rippled with satisfaction. "The Nexeri Empire concurs. The humans have revealed themselves as a threat to galactic stability. They must be eliminated before their infection spreads." Even Councillor Zylthera, typically more diplomatic, had taken a hard stance. "The Silari Collective cannot accept unilateral human intervention in galactic affairs. While we do not wish war, we cannot allow one species to impose their will upon all others." Elena listened patiently as each major power formally declared their intention to destroy humanity. When they finished, she stood and walked to the assembly floor. "I am disappointed but not surprised," she began. "For 8 years, I watched this body choose conflict over cooperation, pride over pragmatism. Today, you make the same choice." She activated her wrist device, and the familiar holographic displays came to life. But this time, they showed something different: real-time feeds from hundreds of locations across the galaxy. "The Terran Federation offered peace," Alina continued. "You have chosen war. Very well. Let me show you what 8 years of preparation looks like." The first display focused on the Krathan home system, where the massive shipyards that had built their empire's fleet hung in orbit around their primary world. As the assembled representatives watched, space around the shipyards began to shimmer. Hundreds of human vessels decloaked simultaneously. They weren't large compared to Krathan dreadnoughts, but their numbers were staggering. More importantly, they moved with precision that seemed impossible. "Task Force Alpha, under Captain Lisa Morrison," Elena narrated calmly. "Objective: neutralize military production capability without harming civilian populations." The human ships moved like a choreographed dance. Beams of energy, unlike anything in galactic databases, reached out to touch the Krathan shipyards. But instead of explosions, the massive construction facilities simply went dark. Lights failed, gravity generators stopped working, and automated systems shut down. General Thrackmore watched in growing horror as his species' most important military installations became useless hunks of metal floating in space. "Impossible," he whispered. "Those shipyards have the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy." "Had," Elena corrected. Captain Morrison's task force used targeted electromagnetic pulse weapons combined with advanced cyber warfare protocols. "Your shipyards still exist, General. Your workers are unharmed, but your ability to build new warships has been eliminated." The displays shifted to show the Nexeri Empire's core systems. Here, the shadow species had built their strength through massive mining operations that stripped entire asteroid belts to fuel their expansion. Human ships were already in position, though they had been invisible until this moment. "Task Force Beta, under Captain David Kim," Elena continued. "The Nexeri Empire's strength comes from industrial capacity. Captain Kim's orders were to shut down military-related mining operations while leaving civilian infrastructure intact. Again, the precise application of human technology was demonstrated. Mining platforms throughout Nexeri space found their equipment non-functional, their computer systems locked, their communication arrays dead. Civilian stations continued operating normally, but the industrial base that fed the Nexeri war machine ground to a halt. High Admiral Kexfar's shadowy form flickered with rage and disbelief. "You cannot have reached all our systems. The distances involved, the coordination required. It's impossible." "Admiral," Elena said patiently, "you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means." The displays expanded to show a galactic overview. Green dots appeared throughout space, marking human positions. There were thousands of them, spread across every major trade route, resource system, and strategic location in the galaxy. Humanity has spent 8 years building not just ships and weapons, but an entire hidden infrastructure, Elena explained. While you fought each other over territory, we quietly established bases in systems you considered worthless. While you competed for resources, we developed technology that makes such competition unnecessary. Commander Chen's face appeared on the main display. Ambassador, Phase 2 is complete. All primary military targets have been neutralized. Civilian casualties, 0. Hostile casualties, 0. Mission time, 47 minutes. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions, accusations, and demands for explanation. How could humanity have struck simultaneously across dozens of star systems? How had they remained hidden for so long? What other capabilities did they possess? Elena waited for the noise to subside before continuing. You want to understand how this was possible? The answer is simple. While you spent decades fighting each other, we spent those same decades learning from your mistakes. She gestured to the displays, which now showed detailed analyses of every major military conflict of the past 50 years. Battle plans, tactical assessments, technological evaluations, everything the major powers had done, recorded and studied in exhaustive detail. We watched the Krathen develop their doctrine of overwhelming force, Elena explained. So we developed weapons that make your overwhelming force irrelevant. We studied Nexeri expansion tactics, so we built a civilization that doesn't need to expand aggressively to thrive. We learned from Silari collective consciousness, so we developed coordination systems that allow perfect synchronization across galactic distances. Counselor Zilthara's purple glow had faded to a dim violet. Your coordination. How do you manage instantaneous communication across such distances? The physics alone should make it impossible. Elena smiled slightly. Quantum entanglement communication networks, established over 8 years through automated probes you never detected. Every human ship, base, and facility is connected in real time. When we act as one. General Thrakmore stepped forward, his massive form trembling with rage. Tricks and technology mean nothing against true warrior spirit. The Krathen will rebuild. We will adapt. We will crush your hidden bases and scatter your fleets across the void. With what fleets, General? Elena asked quietly. The displays changed again, showing space around major Krathen worlds. The mighty war fleets that had terrorized the galaxy for decades sat motionless in their anchorages. Every ship was intact, every crew unharmed, but none of them could move. Captain Rodriguez and Task Force Gamma have been very busy. Elena noted. Your fleets have been equipped with new computer systems, completely non-lethal, I assure you. Your crews have food, water, air, and entertainment. They're probably more comfortable than they've been in years. They just can't fire weapons or engage engines. The same fate has befallen all military vessels of species that chose war over peace. She continued as the displays showed similar scenes throughout Nexeri and Silari space. Though I should mention that several smaller powers have accepted our protection offers. Their fleets remain fully operational under joint human command. The implications hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. In less than 48 hours, humanity had essentially ended the galaxy's capacity for major warfare. The great powers that had dominated galactic affairs for centuries found themselves unable to project military force beyond their own systems. High Admiral Kexfar's synthesized voice carried a note of desperate calculation. You cannot maintain this forever. Your forces must be spread thin to cover so much territory. Eventually, you will make mistakes. Perhaps, Elena agreed. But Admiral, you're still thinking in terms of traditional military doctrine. You assume we need to hold territory, defend fixed positions, maintain supply lines. You assume we're limited by the same constraints that limit you. She activated a new display, showing the true scope of human preparation. The green dots representing human positions weren't fixed installations, they were mobile, adaptive, and constantly shifting. Ships that could function independently for years. Bases that could relocate with hours' notice. Supply networks that existed in dimensions other species barely understood. We don't hold territory, Admiral. We exist throughout it. We don't defend fixed positions. We are the positions. We don't maintain supply lines. We are self-sufficient. The final display showed refugee populations throughout the galaxy, but instead of the overcrowded camps and desperate scenes that had characterized the galactic crisis, these images showed something new. Clean facilities, adequate food and medical care, and most importantly, hope. While your governments debate and threaten, Elena concluded, human personnel are already working with 17 species to establish permanent peaceful settlements. We're sharing technology, providing resources, and helping them build sustainable civilizations that don't require conquest to survive. She looked around the chamber one final time. The Terran Federation made an offer of peace. You rejected it. We demonstrated our capability to enforce that peace. Now I make a new offer. Join us, she said simply. Not as subjects or subordinates, but as partners. Help us build a galaxy where strength is measured not by the ability to destroy, but by the capacity to create and protect. Work with us to solve the problems that have plagued galactic civilization for millennia. And if we refuse? General Thrackmore asked, though his voice had lost its earlier confidence. Elena's expression became very serious. Then you will discover that everything you've seen today was just the beginning. We have capabilities we haven't demonstrated, technologies we haven't revealed, and preparations we haven't disclosed. The question isn't whether humanity can enforce peace in this galaxy, General. The question is whether you want to be part of building that peace or an obstacle to be removed. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For the first time in galactic history, a single species had demonstrated the ability to neutralize all major military powers simultaneously. More importantly, they had done so without causing a single death, without destroying civilian infrastructure, without the usual devastation that accompanied such dramatic shifts in power. You have 72 hours to consider this new offer, Elena announced. But I should mention that refugee protection and humanitarian aid operations will continue regardless of your decision. The age of the strong preying upon the weak is over. The age of cooperation begins now. As she returned to her seat, the displays showed images from across the galaxy. Human ships arriving at refugee camps with supplies and medical aid. Construction teams working alongside alien species to build new settlements. Scientists from dozens of civilizations collaborating on projects that would benefit everyone. The galaxy had been transformed in a matter of days, not through conquest or destruction, but through protection and cooperation. Humanity had broken its silence, not with threats of war, but with demonstrations of an entirely new way of thinking about civilization itself. The great powers would have their 72 hours to decide. But watching the relief on the faces of countless refugees, seeing the hope in the eyes of species that had faced extinction, it was clear that the choice had already been made by those who mattered most. The galaxy would have peace, whether its leaders chose to participate in building it or not.